Okay, hello everybody. Paul Elam here with a voice for men and an ear for men. And we're going to have a discussion today about the changing winds of a voice for men, what's happening in the future, what's going to be happening. And I think it's all good. I'm joined by Tom Golden and by James Huff, who has been producing these radio programs since before I've had gray hair. Well, no, probably not quite that long. Anyway, how you guys doing?
Doing good, Paul. Thanks.
Great. Well, I put an announcement out just the other day that AVFM had really, for years, our mission, our intention, as we put in our tagline, was to change the cultural narrative. That we wanted a different discussion about men out there, certainly wanted a different discussion about feminism out there. And through a lot of work on our own and the work of several other people, by God, the narrative has begun to change. Anti-feminism has become a cottage industry and is doing quite well, flourishing, as you see with people like Sargon of Akkad and Teal Deer and a number of other people. They're drawing in huge audiences on anti-feminism as a platform and anti-social justice. Well, that sort of leaves us with the question, where do we want to go from here? And so after a lot of consideration, I thought, probably the best thing that we can do, since we don't need to change the cultural narrative, is to talk more about what we wanted to change it for. And for me, that falls into the area of men's health, particularly mental health, but also their physical health, financial health, legal health, but primarily mental health, particularly since we have such a terrible problem with men's suicide. And so we have overhauled the mission statement for A Voice for Men, shortened it down to about one paragraph. And we are no longer going to be just an anti-feminist website. As a matter of fact, I would like to mention feminism less and less in the days ahead, although we can't even talk about men's mental health without mentioning feminism from time to time. But we want to focus on men's mental health, by and large, going into the future for AVFM. We've already started that with a blitz of articles on Sunday night, all mental health related, and we're going to continue that well into the future. And with that, I want to call on you, Tom, and James, too, to maybe give your thoughts on, how is it that mental health is an area that an organization like A Voice for Men should have gone into. When we look at the issues of men and boys, why is mental health such an important focus? You want to start, Tom?
I'd be happy to. I think that the timing is really good, Paul. I think that there is a narrative now that's being pushed that's confronting feminism and its lies and hatred, and that's something that AVFM doesn't really have to do in the same way. It really has done its job, but all the things that we've learned about, for the last 10 years or so, show us that the mental health industry has been basically created out of a feminist kind of idea, and for a number of different reasons. And it is literally embedded with the female type energy rather than the male energy. And of course, part of that's because the people who go to therapists, even prior to feminism, people who go to therapists are usually females. And so therapists are more likely to want to cater to that population since that's who pays them. So that's another piece of this, but you add on to that the hatefulness that's come out about men and the disinterest in men's emotional pain that is just the default now in our culture. I think you add all those things together, and it says that mental health is the obvious place to start in looking at things and in exposing some of this hatred. I'm working on a YouTube right now on male suicide, and that kind of, so it feels timely to me in some ways.
Very well said. Thank you, Tom. How about you, James?
Well, I've got to say I've seen a lot of guys go through the ringer when I was in the military, and time again I've watched these guys go into the civilian sector, and within a year to 2 years, they're out of a job. They've got nowhere to go. They're not getting any veterans administration help anytime soon. So their mental health takes them right into homelessness.
Ugh. Yeah,
and these guys don't recover easy, be it because they've had traumatic brain injury or PTSD to such an extent that it affects their ability to function in society, or even the inability to integrate back into society after going off for 2, 3, 4 deployments, divorce in the meantime, et cetera, et cetera. These guys have it rough day in and day out. And I know even quite a few guys who, on the surface, appear to be doing well in their day-to-day lives, but you sit down with them and you have a drink, and you find out just how deep that rabbit hole goes in their head and how much they are struggling every single day to just keep things together, to just keep themselves afloat.
it is depressing, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I don't think I'm overstepping this. Part of the reason that I wanted to take AVFM in the direction of addressing men's mental health needs is because I see the mental health industry, the way it stands right now, as a significant contributor to men's suicide. And let me explain why I feel that way. I didn't say that just for the sake of hyperbole or as clickbait or anything like that. You take the different components of what's going on. One of them is domestic violence. What happens to men when they reach out for help, when they're in an abusive relationship?
Right.
This was covered, and this is, I mean, for better or worse, you might consider it ancillary services, but the way that we address mental health is, or domestic violence is a mental health function. We are trying to ameliorate problems, get people, out of abusive situations, which certainly crosses into the mental health area. But what we have when men reach out for help with domestic violence is that they're often, most often, just told, we don't help men, we don't have any resources for men, or yeah, you can come to this, special group that we have for men that meets once every 3 months, or something like that, something woefully inaccurate. But the narrative of women being the only real victims of domestic violence and the only ones worthy of help, and let's face it, that's what the message is. Our industries addressing domestic violence send the message that women are the one and only group that are worthy of help. And they send the message that men are not worthy of help. And you have to understand and think, where does this put men that, they know they're going to get ridiculed for saying they were beaten up by their wives. They know that in most cases, their male peers and even their families would scoff at them. But then they work through all of that to step up and have the courage to say, I need some help with this. And then the industry itself pretty much just tells them to fuck off. Or they'll, in some cases, refer them to batterers programs saying, we can help you with your violence.
Yeah, I was going to add that.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. And that is one slice of the pie. Then we have what has happened in the mental health field, the distinct anti-male bias that comes into play, the patriarchy theory and the view of men as oppressors. And what I've witnessed with my own eyes over the years in the mental health industry of people coming into treatment programs, into hospitals, into outpatient groups, and teaching men that their masculinity is the problem. I mean, they'll deny that that's what they do, but that is, as Tom, I'm sure, can tell you, that is precisely what they do.
Yep.
How abusive is that? How
Yep.
absolutely abusive is that? So when I say that A Voice for Men is going to address the needs, the mental health needs of men, I'm not talking about A Voice for Men becoming a watered down version of what it was and having buttoned down collared discussions about men's mental health issues that really do them no good whatsoever. I'm talking about addressing these horrific and horrifically abusive problems that are now dominant in the mental health industry. I think particularly in the social work field, which I'm sure Tom can speak to. But I think it is important for us now as we move on past just pointing to the obvious fact that feminists are not great people and that feminism is a hurtful ideology, to take a look at how this is playing out on the ground for men in their lives where they are right now. What do you think about that, Tom?
Oh, I think you're right. I think that, the first thing that comes to my mind is that this is nothing new. That men's pain has generally been taboo for a long, long time, and that people generally don't want to have to deal with a man's emotional pain, and they'll turn away from it whenever they can. At the same time, prior to feminism, men were admired and respected. So, they had people, turning away from their pain, but they also had people who kind of admired them and respected them. So you have sort of a buffer there, and it helped men because the men's way of healing would be to move into an action or an inaction, and they were appreciated for that, But now we come into a situation where men's pain is certainly taboo, but you add on to that the feminist narrative, the patriarchy. There's something wrong with the men, and men have caused all the problems, and the little boys are taught that your sex has caused all the problems, and blah blah blah. You get that silly crap from the domestic violence people about the Duluth model, and about how it's all about male privilege and this and that and the other, and it's just mind-boggling how hateful it all is when you put it together. It's absolutely incredible, and it blows my mind that our per 100,000 suicide rate hasn't gone up.
Well, and it has for middle-aged men.
Really?
Yes, I think I read, and I will try to get you a link to that, Tom. I've read a couple of articles in the past few months that indicated that the suicide rate for middle-aged men in America has gone up sharply.
Yes, and older men too, I think.
Yeah,
that's true. But if you look at the per 100,000, it stays about the same. So you're right, though. That particular demographic within that 100,000 is shooting up. That's a good point.
And I think that really was my point about the mental health field initially. We are charged, mental health professionals are charged with plumbing the depths of the human condition and understanding where people are at and meeting them where they're at to try to extend support, validation, all kinds of help for where they are. And often that help just comes in the form of being validated or being appreciated or unconditionally regarded. Sometimes that's very healing on its own.
Absolutely.
But we've taken that from men. We've taken that out of the mental health equation for men.
Good.
So when I say, that I think the mental health field as it is a contributing factor to men's suicide, I'm quite serious about that. I can't imagine what it must like to be a man at this point in time in history, reaching out for help, either because you're being abused at home or because you're being abused by a family court.
Yep.
And being demonized and reaching out for help only to have feminist ideologues on the other side of that helpline telling you that you're the problem. I wonder if that has in fact caused men to kill themselves, and I don't think it's too far of a stretch to imagine that it has.
No, I don't think it's a stretch at all. I think that if you look at the the ratio over time has been 4-to-1. You know, that 4 men kill themselves for every 1 woman. And I think the bottom line is that men's pain is taboo. No one wants to touch it. And the problem in our culture is that, you know, men are sent away. I'm not going to listen to your pain, you know? And at the same time, then the men go off and try and heal themselves on their own through action or inaction. And then they're accused of not dealing with their feelings. It's like this double whammy that men get, you know? And of course, the icing on top of that is the whole bullshit from the feminists with the patriarchy stuff about how not only are you not dealing with your feelings, you're a bad thing. You know, there's something wrong with you. So yeah, it's crazy stuff, man. It's really crazy. And you know, the mental health profession generally has not taken a red pill. They just haven't taken a red pill. They've been sucking down the blue ones for a long, long time. And I know this because I've been, you know, writing some in, you know, newsletters and places like that. And people get upset, you know, when they hear stuff about men. You know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you know, as you were talking, Tom, it made me remember, I recall back to many staffings I've been in, and, you know, where you meet with treatment team professionals and you go over casework to see how people are doing, how your clients are doing, and all the snide remarks about men and their feelings.
Yes.
That I heard over the years, over and over again. You know, a lot of treatment plans involve getting people to articulate their feelings. And rather than clinicians taking responsibility for the fact that they were unable to create a safe enough therapeutic alliance with their clients for them to really explore their issues, they would just say things like, well, you know, men.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is something that AVFM will be addressing in the future. And we will also address, Tom said, you know, quite rightly, that they haven't taken the red pill in the mental health profession. And it's true. And that also means that they don't know fuck all about what men who have taken the red pill are going through.
Exactly.
We've coined terms like red pill rage. And I've been writing more recently about concepts like red pill grief. I'm doing something now that'll be coming out shortly on red pill isolation.
I was just going to say that.
What happens when you peel back the scales from your eyes, or you take a red pill, as we like to say, or whatever other metaphor you want to use. If you don't like red pill, I'm fine with that. But when you start to see the world more as it is, when you look at concepts like hypergamy, gynocentrism, all these things that most mental health professionals could not define if their lives depended on it, that you find men, as they awaken, they find that they fit even less with the world around them.
Right.
They are more and more isolated the more red pill they become. And since it is impossible to unswallow that pill,
correct,
they're stuck.
Well, they have to go through their own stages of grief. They're losing a large portion of how they've defined reality and through that themselves.
Absolutely. And they do have to grieve the loss of the old paradigm. It's a huge loss. It's almost everything you ever thought was true in your life. It suddenly gets revealed as not true, or certainly a lot more complicated than you ever thought it was in the past.
Yes.
But part of getting through grief is connection to other people. And how many people can really understand red pill grief in the long run?
Yeah, that's part of the biggest shock, I think, for men sometimes, is that they take this red pill, they see things as they are, and then the people around them turn on them, basically.
Yeah.
You know, not only the people at work or the people they see on the subway or whatever, but, you know, people in your own house get upset with you because you're seeing the world in a non-gynocentric sort of way. And this is really, this is red pill isolation right there. You know, and it takes a while to work that through. My own estimate is it takes about 5 years, you know, before people around you can start to understand what's going on, before you can find other people around you who will understand that non-gynocentric way of looking at things. And that 5 years is a very tough period.
It is.
In fact, I've been thinking about, Paul, I've been thinking about on my Patreon site to start doing regular hangouts for men who are patrons there to start to get to know each other, in a way to battle this red pill isolation. Because we need to find some ways to help men connect with each other who have taken this red pill and start to understand, that there are others around them who will support them and hold them through this mess, because even one guy, having one guy who understands is huge. It really helps.
I think that's a great idea. It allows people to get FaceTime and
Yes.
see more than just typing on a screen.
Yes, exactly.
That helped me out considerably with some of the chats and the radio shows and everything else that I've been a part of. Has helped speed that process along, because it wasn't until 2010 that all of a sudden my eyes just opened. I mean, I was looking at everything through life, especially with issues that veterans have and active duty have, and I was putting it in another. Looking at it through another lens, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day came, I ran across A Voice for Men and a few other sites. And I started studying, and then I started actually doing the research, looking at the papers every single time they'd come up. And it hurt. Fortunately, I had a very understanding girlfriend as well.
Nice. That helps.
Yep.
That helped
And
consider.
that's also unusual.
Very, very unusual. I count myself extremely lucky.
Yeah.
But then to be able to sit down and get that FaceTime with other people who were going through the same thing.
That's one of the
was a
benefits.
considerable benefit to me, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the benefits that I've always enjoyed from activism, is that, and even something as simple as sitting down for this very discussion that we're having. We intend these broadcasts to be of help to men out there, and from the feedback that I get all the time, the videos that we do, all the stuff that we do is helpful to men, but it's also helpful to us because we're just like every other guy out there.
Right.
We've woken up. We don't fit with a whole lot of the world. And I also wanted to mention that how important this is, I think, for veterans, that what James has brought up. Veterans, especially combat veterans, have a double whammy. You come back from deployment to a world that does not understand what you've been through, period. They never will. And that's isolating. And then, so for the James Huffs and Terrence Pops of the world, I think, wow, double whammy. You come back from deployment, you experience the red pill, and you fit even less. And that is, I think, very isolating. And, Abraham Maslow talked about this. And if you look at his hierarchy of needs, that once you get past those deficiency needs, food and water, roof over your head, your next immediate thing is that you need is some sort of social affiliation. And I'm sorry, guys. I respect a lot of the MGTOW writers and stuff out there, but this is not something that porn or sex dolls are going to solve. Isolation is a crippling thing. It hurts people. And there may be some people out there, I'm sure there's some that do fine living life as hermits, but that is not going to cut it entirely for the rest of the world. And it's important that we begin, and all the talk over the years of the criticisms of AVFM and of the men's movement, generally speaking, what do you do? What do you actually do? Well, we do plenty. And right now we're planning on doing more. I'm going to join Tom and work out some sort of thing to do hangouts. Maybe Tom and I could do some together with some men out there so that they get the experience, somewhat, even if it's online, of sitting around, being able to see each other and have that social connection. Not group therapy, but just talking,
Exactly.
like men too,
Exactly.
about any other kind of topic. But this is something that we've needed to do for some time, and I think it's important that we follow through with that in the new paradigm for AVFM, which is about providing more service to men. Because, God knows what the explosion of red pill mentality, and it's growing rapidly. That's a great thing, and also that comes with it a whole lot of isolation. And I think it's going to be our purpose in the future to address that.
Yes. I agree. Good idea. Let's set some up.
Just the fact that you've got somebody there who's listening to what you say and whom you can bounce ideas off of
Yes.
means the world. They don't have to have all the answers. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is just sit there and nod and listen. And and you see this in their the expressions on their face. You can see the empathy. That's it. That's all we need.
Yep.
That's all a lot of guys need.
Yes.
Even when they're going through the red pill grief stage, as I like to call it, all they've got to do is reach out and just talk to someone. Rant, rave, get it out of the system, move on, and when you feel that core build up in you again, instead of being self-destructive with it, you sit down and you talk to someone again.
Well said, James. And
yeah, I've been involved in a group of men who've been meeting together now for probably 30 years, 25 years. I don't know exactly how long. But all we do is now we do it every 2 weeks, and we just basically check in. We spend an hour and a half. Each man kind of says what's going on in his life, and he says whatever he wants to say, and then he spends the time listening to what the other guys say. And man, it's really healing. It's really, really healing, because I know those guys have my back. I know that in a pinch, they're going to be my support. I mean, it's and my wife loves it. She says, sometimes I'll get, upset or whatever. She says, "Oh, go talk to your men friends," because it helps her for me to have another outlet other than her as a support, and I love these guys, and I think they love me back. And I'd love to see us, Paul, work on ways to help men around the country, around the world, really, form small groups like this on their own where they just check in. It doesn't have to be a therapy group. They just check in. That's it.
I really agree with that part. And, sometimes, and I can tell you from quite a bit of group experience, people don't even have to come into groups and talk
Right.
to get help. They can sit and watch others talk, because so many of our experiences are shared. And when I hear somebody else talking about how they're coping with a problem that I might be coping with too, just sitting and listening
Yes.
is a great big help to reduce this sense of isolation. It reminds me that whatever problem I got, I'm not alone with it.
Some people will process their own story through listening to someone else's story.
Yep.
I learned that when I was working with families, and I used to, this was back in the 90s, and I was working with families who had a child die, and I, encouraged the mother to tell her what's happening with her, and encourage the kids, each one, to say what's happening with them. And then I'd encourage the dad to say what's happening with him, and he'd sort of balk, I think, come on, Dad, it's okay. You can speak up too. And it took me a while to realize that the kids actually didn't need to say anything sometimes. They could literally heal through listening to the stories of their siblings or their parents. And B, the father didn't need to say so much either. He didn't have to say so much. He too could heal just from listening to what other people are saying. So I realized my mistake, and that was thinking everyone needed a chance, which is bullshit. It's bullshit. Everybody needs to be themselves, and some people, they need to talk, and some people need to just sit on their ass and listen. It works. You know, it works fine.
Yep. Well, I mean, I'd always extend the invitation.
Yes,
And that's
exactly.
and that's exactly what I do whenever I find myself in a position where I'm listening to more than one.
Yes.
And say, "Hey, do you have anything to add?" No?
There you go.
Okay. That's it. Don't have to push it. Just move on to the next thing.
There you go.
And yeah, problem solving vicariously.
Yes.
That's what I'd call it.
There you go. It works.
Well, yeah, hey man, whatever works. I mean, that's one of the that is a problem that men face in the mental health field more than anybody, is this constant pressure to be something that they're not in order to have a therapist's approval. It is amazing when you, again, with all the condescending remarks I've heard over the years about men and their feelings, and they can't express their feelings, and
Yeah.
if they would only quit being so fucking male,
Yeah.
it'd get better. And, that is, and it's amazing. And I know Tom will confirm this, because every bit of education you ever get about mental health treatment tells you that's bullshit.
Oh God, it's so true.
You have to understand where your client is and respect it.
It's so true. Yeah, I've been thinking, Paul, one of the things I'd like to do is see if we can use Title IX to force graduate schools that teach about therapy to show the red pill.
Oh, wow.
Because there is a clause in Title IX that says if an institution offers educational movies about a certain topic, they must also offer movies about the other side. So I think there's room to maybe use Title IX to push that. Because wouldn't it be great to have...
after the hunting ground?
What's that?
Show it right after the hunting ground.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to work on, is finding a way to get the red pill into the graduate schools.
Well, that, the movie The Mask You Live In, I know they're pushing that in education. I guess they've got a whole genre of movies now.
Yeah, exactly.
And
they force men to listen to us when they come into the college. They force them. Gettysburg College forces their freshman males to watch that Mask You Live In. Oh, God.
Well, it would be nice if we could force them to follow that up
with the red pill.
With the red pill.
Yep.
So they would know what bullshit The Mask You Live In is.
Yes, exactly.
But no, this is it. This is the direction that I think is important, and it is about bringing something of use. I learned a lot from looking at the Indian MRA groups. What they did, unlike what we do. I mean, in the West, particularly in America, we're all about work. Workaholism is our national pastime. And we have really followed that pattern at AVFM. We bring people in, encourage them to do activism, and then promptly burn them out. And except for those of us that are too crazy to be burned out, we just keep working we're preserved like Keith Richards. And we keep doing this stuff. But what the Indians did is they said, our meetings, our groups need to be about bringing value to the members. It's not about, let's all get together and go take on the world. Let's not all get together and start doing this activism. It is, what does this group bring that's of value to the members? And when they noted, when they started focusing on that, on bringing value to people, then the activism, the groups congealed, and the activism naturally emerged from that. But first they thought, rather than ask what you're going to do for us, let's see what we can all do for each other.
Yeah, interesting. So have you thought of ways to implement that here?
Yeah, I think you actually brought one of them up. If you if you hadn't, I was going to during the course of this talk. I think that having online groups, now we already do things like we just completed a conference, and those are very powerful
Yeah.
for the people who attend them. That was our third conference, and we've had 2 retreats, one in North Carolina and one in Colorado, and those are actually just awesome. And we talk, I guess, a little bit about men's rights and men's issues on those retreats. Most of the time, we're just having fun.
Yes.
And having fun with people who get us,
Yes.
who get this whole thing. And that is transformative. I plan on having more retreats and broadening them. And like you talked about with the groups, I think we should encourage others to have similar retreats. It's nothing to plan one in your area. All you do is basically you price a lodge or something like that, or a cabin in the hills, and you get people to commit to going. Everybody pays their share, and you show up together. It's really that simple.
Yep.
And so we're going to continue to have those. We're going to continue to have more conferences. We are going to get into the online part of this so that we can use Skype or Hangouts or other features to have meetings for men, and encourage everybody to repeat that in other ways with different groups, and hopefully get it to expand. But I do think that we're at the point now that the job of anti-feminism is well underway. The last thing I would want to be in this culture right now is a feminist, because they've all got a freight train full of truth heading right for them.
And a target.
Yep.
Clear as a bell.
But that aside, I think bringing value to men, bringing something to them that they can find useful, is the best possible thing we can be doing.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, like we changed the narrative culturally on men's issues and on feminism, we can do the same thing in the mental health field.
Yes.
That's going to be a rough one. That's going to mean getting into academia.
Well, the other one wasn't exactly easy.
Well, no, it really wasn't. It came at some considerable expense. I know there have been individuals who've paid a high personal price along the way doing what we've done.
Well, there's people like Earl Silverman who paid the total price.
Yeah.
Yes.
For doing it. And I'm sure everybody mourns those losses, but they are part of the territory with this. It's unfortunate, but I do think it's doable, James. I really do. I think that one of the ways that we make it doable, one of the things I'm going to be doing over the next week, of the many things I have to do in the next week, is making an appeal to mental health professionals to contribute articles to AVFM, to be brave enough to stand up and speak out about the deficits that men face in the mental health industry, and to propose alternatives. I really want to see that happen. And it only takes a few. We've already got some out there doing it. You look at what Tom does, or Dr. Palmatier, there's a handful of people out there doing it. And I think that we can enlist others to step up and start talking about what men are missing from the mental health field. If we can develop a resource that covers a lot of ground in men's mental health, that's an alternative to the absolute hateful garbage that's passing for mental health treatment these days, we can force a change through that alone.
Well, we should get students involved as well then.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we can find others like Sage Gerard.
Good luck finding another Sage.
Oh, well. Just saying, I mean.
Yeah, he's out there though.
Enough students asking questions. Why am I not getting the education I think that I need?
Indeed.
Why are you teaching me lies?
Right.
Yes.
Not exactly the best course I recommend for somebody who wants their degree.
Well, I mean, if you're taking taking it as an elective.
I get emails from students from time to time asking me, what do I do? They're teaching me all this garbage, and it's not just in mental health; it's in, other more or less non-STEM fields, the humanities. And what I tell them is keep your head down, pass your courses, and then start working on change. Because all you have to do is look at what happened with Sage Gerard, who barely got his degree by the skin of his teeth, even though he's an honor student and quite brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they went as far as to try to accuse him of cheating on his exams, of plagiarism, everything. Of course, it was all bullshit. None of it stuck. And he got his degree. But it's not a fate I would wish on any young man or woman in college to engage in activism with the people who hold sway over their grades.
So instead of courting individuals, you'd have to court groups.
Yes, absolutely. And I mainly I'm thinking of mental health practitioners who are already out there.
Right.
And you get to a point, as some of us have, where there's really, what are they going to do to me?
That's true.
I'm not beholden, and I have a pretty full roster of clients right now, and I'm not beholden to anybody to be able to continue the work I do.
Yes.
I think we need mental health professionals to be able to see that there is a market out there for men who want an alternative to men can't express their feelings.
Yeah.
There is a market for that, and we need to show people that, and we need mental health professionals standing up talking about these issues in order for that market to expand.
Agree.
So I notice a lot of what we're talking about here isn't as much a boots on the ground idea. And I'll tell you, there for a while, there were a lot of waves being made with these city groups like Edmonton and Melbourne who were going out and beating the street, putting up posters and things of that nature. And I don't know how much of that is still going on or if it's even needed at this point.
I think that's there's the question of the hour, James. Is it needed? And my answer is probably not.
But what I was thinking of in terms of mental health is having these guys get together in local areas and seeing what can be done in a local area. Take a major city, anything within a 2-hour drive, for instance. Having regular meetups and just sitting down and talking and figuring things out. Having their own little space to be able to do things. Much like the men's sheds that got set up in Australia.
Yes.
I don't know how well they're doing with that right now.
But I think from what I've heard, the men's sheds have sort of surrendered to some feminist control, which is a bloody shame.
That is a shame. But what can we do with that here and still maintain some control? What would it take?
Well, I think what our discussion is part of that answer. I think that if we can create reasons why those meetups are attractive to men. In other words, what are they going to get out of it? And it's a fair question. I mean, one of the tendencies we have is to say, is sort of shame that in men. Oh, what's in it for you? Well, I think that's one of the things we need to work on fixing. There should be something in it for men. If they're going to come to a regular meeting, they should get some benefit out of it.
Yes.
They should get some healing out of it for them, not just to come together to make stuff happen for other men, but to have something positive happen for themselves.
Yes.
And
we have a couple examples already. The American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars.
yep,
Yes.
Those are two excellent examples of the types of organizations where you will find people who have similar interest get together on a very regular basis.
yep. And there is nothing wrong with following that model where it concerns men's issues. I don't think that men's groups have to be or even should be at this point about men's activism. They should be about men being connected to each other and enjoying their time together.
Yeah, I agree.
And if we can do that, I believe, just like with the Indians, you'll see some elements of activism flow forth from that. It's sort of counterintuitive, I know.
No, I like it. I think you're right.
Well, and once again, I mean, you see the same thing kind of move out from the groups I mentioned. They do turkey drives, toy drives, car washes, things like that for the local community.
Right.
It happens. I mean, these guys are sitting down. What do? They play pool, drink beer, talk about the good old days.
Works for me.
And you meet some real salty dogs in those places too.
Indeed.
And next thing you know, they're talking about doing something. Well, what would you do? What do you want to do? And it's not always fishing out on the lake. Let's do something around here. Okay, well, since we get here once a week and since we have a facility, why don't we run a turkey drive or a toy drive? Why don't we go donate blood?
And of course, that is harmonious with what men have done for millennia. And that is they have thought about the community at large. And that's a part of their service, is to be able to take care of the community at large. And in those particular organizations you're talking about, not only do they take care of the community at large, but they also have a camaraderie between the brothers who are doing this together.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. To put a sort of schmaltzy label on it, which really isn't all that schmaltzy. It's about promoting brotherhood.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
And absolutely something that has been robbed from men in this culture.
Yes, and men have been separated. The whole thing about making sure there's no space for men left. Women can have spaces any place, but if men-only spaces are forbidden. I mean, we got to put a stop to that crap.
And we can by creating male spaces and just learning how to employ the word no. Women show up.
Yeah.
Because this is still, for the most part, a free country. And anyway, we're winding down on about as much time as I wanted to spend on this. I just wanted to give some final thoughts and let you two have your turn. A Voice for Men is changing its direction. We are putting down our sort of provocateur-only position where the writers engage in contests with each other to see how many feminists we can piss off. It was fun. It was a lot of fun sometimes, but it served its purpose. And now we'll be turning our attention to the needs of men, especially those men who have red-pilled and are struggling with the adjustment. And the adjustment is a struggle for anybody. I don't care who you are. When you quit living a blue pill life and when you see gynocentrism, hypergamy, women's privilege, all this stuff, chivalry for what it is, understanding all that stuff really does put you more on the outs with the rest of the world around you. And it does create need for that needs to be addressed, part of them by people in the mental health community. And that is our future at AVFM. And I'm proud to be part of it, just like I'm proud to be a part of where we were. I'm looking forward to working with people like Tom Golden and others on providing content that's of value to this special demographic of men who don't have any resources out there at all. If it's not going to come from AVFM or someplace like the Honey Badgers, it's not going to happen. So I've been working with all my staff at AVFM, and we are going to hone in on this and serve those men the way they deserve to be served. And I'm really, really excited about this for our future.
You're here. Yeah, I agree, Paul. At first when I heard about the whole idea of shifting AVFM, a part of me just went, "Oh no," because I just kind of liked it the way it was, and I don't know. I guess I'd gotten used to it. But the more I've thought about it, and the more I kind of sense what can happen, the more I think you're on the right track. And as usual, you're kind of ahead of the game, and I think you're going in the right direction. I'm very, very happy about it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
The moment I read that article, I had to take a step back.
Yeah.
And not because I didn't love what I was reading, but because I had this very real sense of letting go and moving on to something else.
Yes.
And it was a very profound feeling.
Hmm.
I've been part of this organization. I've been doing things with them for 6 years now, and
doing a damn good job.
And to be able to watch the transformation from one thing to the next, and to realize the value of what we've done to change that cultural narrative filled me with a great sense of pride.
Hmm.
Yeah, buddy.
Amen.
And then to be able to say, but there's so much more we can do. And we have the direction of what we can do. That lets me know, even more so, that AVFM is standing on its word and standing on integrity. That we're not pushing the same thing that the feminists did for years and years and years with a victim narrative. That we move beyond stating the issue and into actually providing solutions. Provide those solutions to individuals who need our help.
Without daddy government.
That feels great. That really, that's something I want to be a part of forever.
Me too. I'm with you.
Well, thank you both for joining me for this discussion. I can't think of two people I would have rather had to hear more. I've known Tom for, God, I think I had a lot more hair when I met Tom. And James, I've gone back with you a long time now, and I really appreciate your tireless work. A lot of it that goes without thanks, bringing these programs day in and day out to people who depend on them. You've done great work, and I'm happy for the new direction we're going. And like I said, while we're not going to focus all the time on anti-feminism, I still want everybody to know that, in my opinion, feminists can just suck it.
Yes, let's kick ass.
Let's do it. Thank you all, everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Great day, and we'll see you next time.
All righty.